Hello, this is Spellskies MTG, and today I have my second instalment of Sporefrog shenanigans. In today's episode, we have a standoff between Yidris Maelstrom wielder, Urza Lord High Artificer, and Kethis of the Hidden Hand. Today I am playing Yidris. It's a wheel deck. It's a draft deck. It's not finished yet. So I kept a Forest, a Temple of Malice, a Temple of Melody, Beacon of Tomorrows, an Arcane Signet, a Whirlpool Warrior, and a Mystic Confluence. Alec, playing Kethis is the Hidden Hand, Legendary Tribal, kept a Massacre Girl, Mesmeric Orb, Binding of the Titans, Goreclaw, Terror of Calcisma, 2 Plains, and a Swamp. And then Jack, playing Urza, Lord High Artificer, kept 2 islands, a Pennant of Prosperity, a Thought Vessel, an Elsewhere Flask, and a Frogify. Right, let's get on with the game. After taking a picture of my opening hand, Jack draws, plays an island, and then passes. Alec draws, plays a plains, and passes. I draw for turn. I play a Temple of Milady, scry 1, and keep it on top, then pass a turn. Jack draws, plays an island, then plays Golem's Heart, and then passes a turn. Alec plays a swamp, then plays a Mesmeric Orb, then passes. I untap, I mill first, 1 though first, draw for turn. I play Temple of Malice, scry 1, I keep it on top, and then pass. Jack continues to gain life from the artifact, he then untaps and draws. Jack remembers to mill when he untaps from the Mesmeric Orb. He plays a Tormod's Crypt, gains another life. He then plays a Thought Vessel, gains another life, then passes. Alec untaps, mills 2, and draws for turn. He then plays a Forest, and taps 3 to play his Commander. I then untap, mill 1, and draw for turn. I play a Terramorphic Expanse. I then tap 2 for an Arcane Signet. Jack gains a life. I then crack the Terramorphic Expanse. I then find an island with the Terramorphic Expanse, putting it on the battlefield tapped. Jack untaps, mills 2, and draws for turn. He taps 1 for a Soul Ring, gaining another life. He then plays 2 for an Elsewhere Flask and draws a card, gaining another life. He taps an island and a Thought Vessel for a Prismatic Lens and draws another card, gaining another life. Alec untaps, mills 3, and then draws for turn. He then plays a Command Tower for turn. He then taps 2 to cast Binding of the Titans, milling everyone for 3. Alec then attacks Jack for 3, and then Jack takes a 3. I untap and mill 3. I play a Forest. I then play Yidris and pass the turn. Jack then untaps and mills 2. Then remembers he needs to mill 2 more, and then draws for turn. He then taps 4 to cast Urza, and when he enters, he makes a construct which has power and toughness equals the number of artifacts he controls. He then plays an artifact. He didn't tell me what it was. I think it's Terrarian. He taps 1 to cast Of One's Mind, drawing 2, and in response, Alec casts Assassin's Trophy on Urza. And then Jack searches his library for a basic land card and puts it onto the battlefield tapped. Jack then passes to Alec. Alec untaps and mills 5. Alec then draws for turn, and Binding the Titans second mode triggers. Alec then exiles Xyris and the Sentinel Totem from mine and Jack's graveyards. And he gains a life because he exiled a creature. Alec then plays a Plains. Alec then casts the Wanderer for 3, reduced from Kethis, and then exiles my Yidris with its down tick. Alec then passes. I then untap and mill 4. Analysis, drawing 2 cards. I then play a Bajuka Bog for turn and exile Alec's graveyard for destroying my commander. And in spite, Alec activates Kethis twice and exiles the legendaries from his graveyard. Jack then untaps and mills some quantity. I remember to mill 4 from the previous turn, and then Alec then notes that was a pretty good mill. Jack then recasts Urza, making another construct token. Jack then activates Urza, shuffling his library, then reveals the top card. Jack then reveals the top card of his library after shuffling, and reveals an island, and I burst out laughing. He then plays the island for turn. Jack then swings at me with his constructs for 9. Jack then passes, and on the end step, Alec taps 2 of his lands, so he gets to mill them. He then mills 5, and mills a load of lands. Binding the Titans then sacrifices itself, and he returns Terramorphic Expanse from his graveyard to his hand. He then plays it, and then sacrifices it for a Forest. Alec then downticks the Wanderer, exiling one of Jack's constructs. The untapped one, to be clear. Alec then taps 5 and sacrifices Kethis to cast Tulsa Famine Incarnate, halving Jack's life total down to 20. He then passes. I untap and draw for turn, but I mill first. I then cast Yidris and pass the turn. Jack then untaps, mills. He frogifies Tolscar, Family Incarnate, turning it into a 1/1 frog with no abilities. Jack then taps 7 to cast Meteor Golem, destroying Alec's Mesmeric Orb. Jack then exiles Alec's graveyard, which I thought was a bit mean. Jack then gains another life from the Meteor Golem. Alec then untaps, draws for turn. Alec then plays a land. Alec then casts Kamal's Druidic Valve for 5. Jack then counters the spell for no apparent reason. Jack is then attacked for 1 with his Alec's 1/1 frog. Jack takes 1. I then untap. I then attack Alec with Yidris. Alec then takes 5, and all my spells this turn gain Cascade. I then tap 2 to cast 3 visits. I then Cascade into a Scheming Symmetry. I then choose not to cast it, because otherwise the card will get shuffled away by the 3 visits. After finding a forest, and tap 5 to cast Psychosis Crawler. I then Cascade into a Notion Thief, making alarm bells ring for everyone at the table. Jack then gains a life from me casting Psychosis Crawler. Jack then untaps and draws for turn. Jack then casts Clever Impersonator, copying Notion Thief, which means if anyone draws an extra card, they just cancel each other out. Jack then casts a 40 Scroll Rack, gaining a life. Alec then untaps and draws for turn. Alec then taps 5 to cast Massacre Girl, giving everything -1/-1. 3 creatures then die, meaning everything gets -3/-3. Urza then dies, giving everything -5/-5. The Meteor Golem dies along with Urza, giving everything -6/-6. Then my Psychosis Crawler dies, giving everything -7/-7. However, Jack's Construct survives. Jack then pays 1, taps Scroll Rack, exiling 2 cards from his hand, and then draws 2. I then untap and draw. I then flashback Deep Analysis, drawing 2 cards and losing 3 life. I then cast Emoti Celebrant of Bounty, and I Cascade into a Languish, and I choose not to cast it. I then play Simic Grove Chamber, bouncing land to my hand. After discarding, I then pass. Jack untaps and then draws. He then casts a Mystic Forge, meaning he can look at the top card of his library and play it if it's an artifact. He then gains life from the Forge thing. He then exiles the top card of his library with Mystic Forge. He then casts Golem Foundry. He then gains another life. Jack then passes. Alec untaps and draws for turn. Alec then casts Trostani, Celestinia's Voice. Alec then attacks Jack for 4 with Massacre Girl, which has Menace. Jack then takes 4 and goes down to 19. I then untap and draw. I play land for turn. I then pay 7 to cast Brass's Bounty. I Cascade into Niv-Mizzet Perun. And then Brass's Bounty resolves and I make 7 treasure tokens. I then add 1 to the 7 treasures and cast Beacon of Tomorrows. I draw a card from Niv-Mizzet, pitting at Jack for 1. I then Cascade into Secrets of the Golden City. I draw a card from Niv-Mizzet, and then I draw 3 because I control 10 or more permanents, meaning I have the city's blessing. And I deal 4 to Jack. I then take an extra turn and shuffle Beacon of Tomorrows into my library. Oh, my end step, I cast Brainstorm, drawing a card, Niv-Mizzet, pinging Jack for 1, and then draw 3 from Brainstorm, pinging Jack for another 3. I then place the 2 cards on top, setting the second card so I can Cascade into it. After discarding, I untap and draw for my second turn. I then play a Trading Center and enters untap because I control 2 or more opponents. I then tap 6 and cast Chandra Flamecooler, cascading into Incendiary Command. I draw a card from Niv-Mizzet. I deal 4 damage to Alec with Incendiary Command. And then I choose the other mode to have everyone discard their hand and then draw that many cards. I discard 7 and then draw 7 cards. I then deal 7 to Jack with the Niv-Mizzet for drawing 7. I then tap 3 to cast Frantic Search. I draw 2 and an extra 1 from Niv-Mizzet. I then discard 2 and untap 3 lands. I then ping Jack for 2 and Alec for 1. I then tap 2 to cast Flood of Rebirth, returning Windfall from my graveyard to my hand. I then tap 3, cast Windfall, draw from Niv-Mizzet. I then kill off Jack with the Niv-Mizzet trigger. Jack has no responses and loses. I then discard the 7 cards in my hand and draw 7. And then Alec discards his hand and draws 7. I then deal 7 damage to Alec with Niv-Mizzet. I then 0 Chandra, discarding my hand and then drawing 8. Dealing 8 more to Alec, sending Alec to 16 life. I then pass to Alec. Alec untaps and draws. He then plays an Isolated Chapel for turn. Alec then recasts Kethis, gaining 4 life with Trostani. Alec then plays a Shell of something. He then taps 2 and casts Life from Relome, bringing back 2 lands from his graveyard to his hand. He then passes and I untap and draw. I then deal 1 to Alec from when I draw. sending him down to 19. I then tap 3 to cast Harrow, sacrificing a land. I then draw a card and ping Alec for 1, sending him down to 18. I then find 2 land cards on battlefield. I then 0 Chandra and discard my hand to draw 9, taking Alec down to 9. I then tap 6 to cast Game Plan. I then cascade into Frogify and I Frogify Trostani. Alec then goes down to 8. Then we shuffle our library, graveyard and hand together and draw 7. Alec then takes 7, going down to 3. I then cast 3 visits, draw a card from Niv Mizzet, ping Alec for 1. I find a forest and put it on the battlefield. Alec, realising he doesn't have any flyers, then dies when I attack him with Niv Mizzet, and I win the game. So post-game review, I'm personally very happy that my Yidris deck draft managed to pull a win out of the bag. Very happy with that. Jack didn't really have a way to finish off the game from his very strong start there, making a lot of mana with Urza. And then Alec just didn't seem to be able to get his Kethis value engine going, mainly because the cards he was milling either weren't legendary or he kept getting his graveyard exiled, which was very unfortunate. And the most valuable card of the game was definitely Niv Mizzet Perun. That card allowed me to pull ahead of everyone else and to basically just reduce them just from drawing cards, which this deck does anyway. And it was also drawing me extra cards to get more wheels to finish off my opponents. It's also a very large threat in the air at a 5/5 fly. So, amazing card there. Definitely cheaper than I think it should be. So, I hope you enjoyed episode 2 of Sporefrog Shenanigans. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.